Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Cave of the Cross Apologetics. I am Patrick.
And I'm Tony.
And you were sick of hearing about me talk only me every month. So that's why I had to get a group of friends together or me talking to somebody, a group of people elsewhere. But now you get only half of that. And so we brought Tony back on. I've been calling you the deserter to the land of freedom. And I describe that territory as now Texas. So
I see. Okay.
So from Michigan to Texas, probably less plants.
So I didn't desert the land of freedom. I deserted to the land of freedom. Gotcha.
Right. Yes, exactly. More horses, tumbleweed, cacti. Have you gotten your cowboy boots and Stetson hat yet?
Yeah, I'm still working on that.
Okay. You've only been there a month. You got to figure it out.
That's right.
So we're kind of picking up almost right in the middle of our book, Against Opposition by the Greg Bahnsen. And if you haven't been with us and you're just joining us, we've discussed that this book is not quite a book that he's written, but it's kind of written on his behalf. This is a collection of speeches that he gave to kind of college age level folks, and that it provides kind of a good basis for understanding kind of what presuppositionalism is without too much of the fancy language. And so we've talked up to Chapter 5 is what we're on now. And this kind of ends. I would almost call it kind of the first half of the book.
It has a total of 11 chapters. So
yeah,
we're right around the middle part of it.
Right. So in previous chapters, we've considered the nature of both what is faith, what are facts, and what is a worldview. And we talked about how those things are held by all people. And so, again, we tend to think of faith as kind of religious faith, but in the way that it's been defined for thousands and thousands of years, going back to Socrates and Plato and the people that wouldn't claim Christianity or Judaism or Islam as a faith. They've talked about having faith in other people and using the same Greek word pistis that's been commonly known, and even up to today when we say that we have confidence, confide, with faith, when we talk about having confidence in someone to do the job correctly or having trust in them, we talk about that in context of somebody's worldview, that they have trust, that they are able to rely on their senses, or that they're able to know things, or that things are right and wrong. But where that's held, where that's kept, is based in the presuppositions, and then from there they build out their worldview that we have to look at, because we all bring presuppositions and worldview to whatever argument we're talking about: politics, nature, the best baseball team, and we have facts that we interpret our worldview through. So we tend to kind of view those as the glasses in which we look past to see what we can see when it comes to someone saying, here's a brute fact. Well, there's not really such thing as a brute fact, but it's an element out in the world that we're interpreting. And so you come across the Statue of Liberty in the dirt and it's cut in half. Well, is it Earth, or is it a parallel dimension where man evolved from apes, or is it, apes evolved from man? So
one way to consider this is, as you said, a fact is something that's kind of out there in the world. And sometimes we use fact for the term evidence. And evidence is different than facts, right? A fact, it's a fact that there is a computer sitting on my desk, but what is that evidence for? Well, it could be evidence for anything, depending on what I'm talking about, the argument I'm attempting to make, my worldview, that sort of thing. Evidence generally is something like, a fact that I can use to support my particular position. Mm-hmm. And so folks often try to say facts when they're really talking about evidence. And evidence is really relative to the point that you're trying to make. Mm-hmm. Now, some facts are better evidence for a position than others, but just because but a fact is a fact. It's just something that's out there. And how you use it determines whether or not it's evidence.
Right.
And how you use it is based on your worldview, how you see things and your perspective and that sort of thing.
And this doesn't always have to be only physical facts. It could be, we know Christianity isn't true because there are hundreds of other religions out in the world. Well, through my worldview of Christianity, I know that there's a reason why there are hundreds of other religions in the world. And so that fact isn't one that we split up and say, oh, yep, that's truth for your point of view. We have to make sense of all facts in the world. And what we learned from Nancy Pearcey's book is sometimes inconsistent worldviews have facts that are out in the world that they kind of lop off and say, oh, that's not real, or that doesn't apply to us. And so the Christian worldview says that all facts are God's facts. And so we have the greatest burden by saying, okay, everything that we look at, everything that we experience, we have to interpret through the what we consider the most and only consistent worldview out in the world. Mm-hmm. And so we've covered that in previous chapters, caveofthecross.com. If you go to the middle of the page, all the books that we've covered are there, including interviews with people and the authors we had. And so you can find Against All Opposition book cover right there. Click on all of them, and you can get all the episodes right from there if you're wanting to start. And so you start at the bottom and you work your way up. But last chapter, our focus was on developing a Christian worldview, self-consciously, biblically, under the ultimate authority of God, and applying it to every area of our life. Because again, all facts are God's facts. So I stubbed my toe and it hurts. Why does that happen? Oh, woe is me. There is no God because of the natural evil that's in the world from stubbed toes, or things like war and murder and rape and those things too. So now we're into Chapter 5, and Chapter 5 is entitled Unbelievers Are Not Neutral and Christians Shouldn't Be. So now we'll talk about what to do when you encounter different worldviews of unbelieving professors, fellow students, friends, family members, strangers, or the people that you work with. So pretty much everyone that you're ever going to encounter out in the world.
And so as you mentioned, as Bahnsen tells us, we all have a worldview, an underlying set of presuppositions about the nature of God and man, the world, and, how we know what we know, epistemology, how we're supposed to live our lives, ethics, right, and so on. And by that worldview, then we evaluate, Bahnsen tells us, everything else, right? And so, he says that we're going to enter into a discussion with someone who has his own worldview. And so with his own underlying presuppositions, his own way of evaluating facts, and his own ideas about how he knows what he knows and how he's supposed to live his life. And in such conversations, he tells us, we have one worldview, ours, in conflict with another worldview, theirs, right? So now what do we do?
Right, exactly. So the temptation when that problem arises is that there's a temptation that Christians have been given into for hundreds of years that has an initial plausibility. It is to think, well, then everyone has to be neutral. Let's everyone pull all aside our presuppositions. You put aside yours, I'll put aside mine. I'll put my Bible down. You put nothing down as the atheist, and we'll just look at things from scratch. We'll build up. It's the Descartesian model of let's empty our minds of everything except for our doubt. There's the I that's in the center, and let's build out from there. So we won't have any prejudices or any assumptions. We'll just be neutral. And then you say your first word, and then it's in English, and all these emotions and historicity of language comes flooding in, and oh boy, it seems like it's not possible to be neutral. Well, before we talk about the encounter with the unbeliever, we must deal with this question of neutrality, and can anyone truly be neutral?
Right. And Bahnsen is really upfront with this, right? He says there are two propositions about neutrality that a person needs to remember when the unbeliever tries to press neutrality on you, right? Because again, as he mentioned, the temptation is to say, well, we're all, coming from our own worldviews, so we have this conflict. Why don't we just be neutral and kind of get rid of all of our worldviews and just kind of, have a neutral stance? And he says, this is what we need to be to remember when we are tempted to do this or say this or think like this. first, the unbelievers are not neutral. And second, we shouldn't be neutral, right? And so he's going to kind of pursue those ideas here in the first part of this chapter.
Mm-hmm. So in the heading titled "No one is neutral," he states just that no one is neutral, not even the person who claims to be neutral, and that's the first point. And so think about it when it comes to that statement. Okay, we seem to be at odds in our discussion of whatever it might be. Let's come up with some initial starting points. Let's be neutral. Well, even from that starting point, there's an underlying assumption that neutrality is a good thing to be. And so we're already bringing presuppositions and worldview claims into it by saying it's good to be neutral, or it's possible to be neutral.
It's possible. Yeah. Right. So those are two assumptions right there. It's possible and it's good.
Right.
And so we're bringing those in. Yeah.
I always think of small town representations in government, and so you have all these rules that say, we believe in democracy, and we have these rules for how speaking is to take place, and so we need to follow these rules. Well, okay, who's draconianly putting the rules in there, or who's saying let's vote on all these things and whether or not they should, and even saying let's vote on this already smuggles in this is the best way to do things,
to make a decision.
It has somebody who's leading that charge. There's no collective a wrinkle in time type brain of just saying we are the Borg and democracy is how we're going to go about here, because that defeats the whole purpose of that. So
you can't defeat the Borg.
Right. So even at the beginning of democracy, it already fails by having a one ruler there. So he goes on to say, imagine what it would be like to study the American colonies for an entirely neutral point of view. We want to know what it was like in colonial America. And since we are completely neutral, we don't have any idea of what's important or what's not important. Do we look at taxes or do we look at grain production? Do we care about freedom? And so we should look at the documents written, or do we care about monarchy? And so we look at the history of monarchicism as it goes throughout the world in different time points and how they faced rebellion. So how do we know what even to look at? Where do we start? How do we make determinations? What causes this and what causes that? We have no notion of responsibility when we're coming from a neutral standpoint. Okay, well, this one battle happens and this is what kicks it off. Well, do we just look at things in a rebellion as only war and battles, or do we say the hearts and minds of the people have to be one as well, until all of a sudden you're in 1778 and all of a sudden you're free and you're forming a government that's never been formed in this way before? Well, you're going to be missing a lot of points here. And so to have a neutral standpoint, you're not able to make these claims. In fact, the newest history, this revisionist history that's come about with the positive aspects of Amazon or different schools coming into light with the internet is, why didn't they teach me this in school? Well, because this in school had one narrow point of view to try and capture, even if you took out all the bad qualities, they're trying to give you a big swath of what was important. They try to hit it every year so that you kind of remember it and you think, okay, there's Bunker Hill, even though Bunker Hill is actually Breed's Hill, but we're not going to go into that because everyone kind of colloquially knew it as a Bunker Hill. And so then you get to a point where you're like, oh, wait, everything I was told was wrong. And I need to read more books on top of it because they're coming not with a neutral point of view. Even if they really try, they're not able to get there. And so these revisionist histories have come in and said, there might be other avenues that we haven't looked at before that might explain better or might give you a better picture of what's even going around. And that's just history. That's not even making moral claims. That's just how we looked at what happened and why in the past.
Yeah. And so Bahnsen's point is that choices must be made, right? And you can't make choices without some standard, right? what is important when we're looking at history? What's the important things that we need to consider? Well, you're going to have to make some choices because, how many grains are, how much grain was produced and all that. You have to make choices is the point he's making, right? And in order to do that, you have to have a standard. When you apply that standard, you're indicating that you don't have a completely open-minded approach to the subject. You're discriminating between various things that are happening. You're deciding that one thing is good or bad or more important or less important than something else, right? So the point here is you cannot be neutral. That's what he's trying to get at here. And then he backs this up with scripture. He says the Bible warns us that the unbelievers cannot be neutral. They have a different mindset from Christians, right? Paul says in Ephesians chapter 4, this I say, therefore, and testify in the Lord that you no longer walk as the Gentiles also walk, in the vanity of their mind, being darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them. So they have a different mindset, a different perspective, a different worldview, right, than the believer. So they're not neutral. And of course, we aren't either.
Right. Yeah, it's the person that wants to make the biggest impact of science. So he writes everything that has that he experiences going forward down on paper, and then he hands it in at the end of his life and says, "There, I've made contributions to science." Well, what science, where, for what reason, for what purpose, and what were you looking at? The smell of the air when your shadow was directly underneath you. Does that have any correlation? I don't know. I just wrote it down. So without, with being neutral, you're not able to be to have a direction of impact or point of view. We read this in Mitch Stokes' How to Be an Atheist, when he says the scientists who put forth the theory that holding on to that theory isn't neutral. They're not hoping to just disprove it and it goes away. They've invested something into them, psychologically almost, where they think this is the best answer to it. They've observed a phenomenon and they think this is the way to do it. And some scientists spend their entire lives to just then throw it away after 60 years of studying it because other things have come and defeated it. Or, you have the structure of the atom that was hotly contested in science, and so you had two different groups of people that really fostered almost a war, a civil war, a true civil war in the scientific field by hashing that out. Mm-hmm. And so again, not neutral, right?
All right.
All right. So by what standard? Hey, that sounds familiar. So the Bible says that unbelievers are not neutral. And the unbeliever who professes to be neutral is fooling himself, if not outright lying. And also, if we do that, we are fooling ourselves and we're outright lying too. It seems to him that one thing or another is an expression of his or her neutrality, but it isn't neutral. It is a specific choice that is made to see the world in a particular way based on a set of foundational interpreting principles. In fact, I always think of the good alien movies are ones where aliens are alien. So I think of the movie Arrival, where they have a different mode of communication that has to be figured out. And so they bring in this mode of communication. Or a book like Michael Crichton's Sphere, where imagination is actually brought to life through we think maybe alien technology. And so having these alien type foundation principles then allow for people to translate and bring it into understanding of where they're at. And so by having this neutral claim, well, here's a squid alien that squirts some ink up. We're neutral, so we can't assume that they're communicating because we want to be as neutral as possible. We can't think, they're a living being and they might want to communicate. They're not harvesting our blood to consume because their planet has died, or they're always stealing our water, or they hate water and they come to this waterful planet, which is always weird. That's very alien of them. It seems very unintelligent to me. And so if you're neutral in the face of that, then you can't make those choices that say, this might be a form of communication and we might find things out starting from that point and going forward.
Yeah, yeah. And so, his point is, and he repeats it here. He says, never forget that unbelievers are not neutral. It's impossible for them to be neutral. It can't be done. And this next section, he says, Christians should not attempt to be neutral. Right? You shouldn't be neutral. He talks to us about what Jesus says in John 17. Jesus prays that we be sanctified by the truth. And then Jesus says, thy word is true. So we are to be set apart. That's the idea of sanctified of God, set apart and consecrated by the word of God. We can't be neutral if we're holy people or set apart people or separate people. And what separates us and makes us different is that we follow the word of God. So unbelievers are not neutral, and we shouldn't attempt to be neutral either. We are set apart people by the word of God for God's purposes.
Right. Exactly. So not only should you not be neutral because Jesus prayed that you would be sanctified, but it would also be immoral for you to try to be neutral. Oh, well, we're just bringing in our presuppositions right there. Morality when it comes to lying or to be untruthful in this capacity. Well, yes, exactly. In Matthew 6:24, Jesus says, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. If you must be sanctified by the word of truth so that you don't walk in the darkness of the ignorance of the Gentiles' mind, then you cannot be neutral and you can't serve two masters. To say, I'm okay, fine, I'll put my Bible down, and then say, well, I believe everything in it. What is that as anything other than lying? I hold this as the most important form to me to bring to light how I am able to do science and rely on it, how I'm able to trust my senses for the most part, how I'm able to know that the world is codified in a logical form, and that there's an objective morality. To set that aside and then to never pick it up, what position do you have if you say anything other than that? You're lying, and that's not what the other side would want to interact with.
Yeah. And so, he talks about neutrality's smugglers, right? He says no one will be neutral, and those who pretend to be neutral are really smuggling in some underlying philosophies that they're probably not aware of. So whenever a person says, whatever they say about how they know what they know, right, epistemology, or what, he thinks about the nature of reality, metaphysics, right, is a reflection of an understanding and underlying philosophical commitment. And no one, gets rid of their neutrality, right? So when they're arguing with you, you can't get rid of breathing, right? You have to breathe when you argue. And he makes the same case with regard to neutrality, right? Just like you have to breathe when you argue, you have a position when you're, making these types of distinctions and using various things. So no one is neutral, right? And that's the temptation that he wants us to see. And then next here, he's going to use that to help us as we do our, apologetic with the unbelief.
Right. So no one is neutral. No, not one.
That's right.